Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy Heroes. This is a talk video, and we've got our next Bad Batch Season 3 character. Batcher is on the way. Going to do our breakdown and analysis of the kit like we do. Look at the developer insights and tips. And now that we have two characters, we can start looking at some of those squad interactions and start speculating on some of the mechanics that would be desirable on the next several. With Batcher, we've got a light side Bad Batch character, but CG forgot to give us a class tag. So we don't know if she's an attacker, support, healer, whatever. Presumably though, she's probably going to be an attacker. With her attributes, Batcher can AoE ability block and offense down. The ability block though is conditional. Ignore stealth and taunt, which if you remember from when Swallow was broken, that was really nice. I kind of really liked using, especially the way that I use Swallow since I don't have Ray. Damage also can't be evaded. With the tips, Special 1 controls the enemy. She's a debuff specialist and utilizes the abilities with Captive for best results. Prioritize high speed, she's going to act frequently, and speed up is going to help give her an advantage. And Batcher is the first character that we control that inflicts bleed like the Nexu. With Batcher, we're going to start with the unique ability. I think this additional context is going to help us better understand the mechanics of the attack abilities. So the unique LH201, this is a Zeta ability. Batcher's damage can't be evaded. That is a strong foundation because that means Foresight and Blind are not going to stop Batcher from getting her hits in, and on top of that she ignores stealth and taunt. So here we know we can attack anyone and we're going to be landing our hits, and it makes me wonder if this team may end up being a Great Mother or Cadme counter. Being able to ignore both stealth and taunt just opens up this squad for a bunch of interesting counters, and that's before we even understand what's going on with the rest of the kit. Next, while another Bad Batch ally is inflicted with Captive, Batcher has plus 50% offense, plus 50 speed, and Piercing Howl's cooldown is reduced by 1. So Captive, that's from Fugitive's kit. The first time a mercenary Bad Batch character or Batcher, Fugitive, etc. would be defeated, they instead gain Captive, where they need to get rescued. And to rescue, we need to get 30 stacks of target practice and do that fast. So this mechanic is going to increase the odds that we accomplish the rescue objective, because now we're both much faster and we are able to attack who we need to ensure that we are getting the stacks of target practice, which will allow us to save our ally. In the last portion, Batcher assists herself whenever she uses a special ability on her turn. And this condition here is why I wanted to start with the unique, because this means that every turn that Batcher takes, the basic ability is getting used, which means its effects will persist. And what that basic ability will do, the basic is Crushing Assault, physical damage to the target enemy, and gain speed up. So that means this speed up is going to be constantly on Batcher, making her even faster, and why we want to build upon that foundation of speed and modding her accordingly. During Batcher's turn, if the enemy was marked, inflict them with defense down and 2 stacks of off balance. Off balance, as a reminder from Padawan Sabine's kit, lose 10% turn meter and health if damaged. And here we see the beginnings of the theme of this kit. Lots of speed or turn meter manipulation, slowing the enemy down while Batcher gets faster, and that combination is going to create opportunities for Batcher to get in several attacks. The first special ability, Piercing Howl, this is a cooldown of 2. That is a very quick turnaround on a special ability. And remember from the unique that this is the ability that gains a cooldown reduction when an ally gains Captive. So we can imagine situations within a battle where we're basically using Piercing Howl back to back because of these conditions. And that's very valuable because of how powerful this ability can potentially be. What it does is Bad Batch allies AoE gain 30% offense for 2 turns. On the target enemy, dispel all buffs and inflict marked for 2 turns, and that's unresistible. And this is a key mechanic here because now we are dispelling buffs, but also that marked means we are ignoring stealth, ignoring taunt, so we are able to place marked onto key characters. And because of Fugitive's mechanics, where we need to be targeting the character who was last targeted, that means we no longer have to rely on attacking just like a taunting tank. We can now go after these marked, and because of of the mechanic of the cooldown reduction, we can potentially be throwing out multiple marks onto the field so that we can be gaining those effects more effectively, but also the mechanic from the basic ability. Now we can be spreading off balance around to multiple characters that are removing the turn meter and removing a little bit of health. And that is pretty key because this last condition, if enemies have off balance, inflict ability block on them and AoE defense down on everyone. So this is another mechanic tying into that off balance synergy. The only issue here is we may not get a lot of opportunities with Batcher to apply that off balance, especially if on Batcher's turn we're using special abilities and not using the basic, because the off balance only applies on Batcher's turn when she uses her basic. I guess one thing that I would want clarified is if it also counts when we use a special, because that's technically her turn. We're just not choosing to use the basic ability. Are they going to code that correctly, or is the assist from the basic not count? For our second special ability, Ferocious Bite, a cooldown of 3 and an Omicron ability, physical damage to the target enemy, inflict pinned and 2 stacks of bleed, maxing out at 6 until the encounter end. Now bleed, that is minus 5% speed and tenacity, lose 5% health each turn, remove 1 stack when any health is recovered. And pinned is can't gain bonus turn meter and minus 25% speed. Between bleed and pinned, that is a lot of lost speed for our opponents. That's minus 35% just to start with 2 stacks of bleed. If we're able to get that up to 6 stacks, now we're looking at minus 55% speed for our opponents, and they can't gain bonus turn meter. Now combine that with the fact that Batcher is getting speed gains with speed up on basic. Now we're seeing how the mechanics of this work. Our opponent is getting slowed down to such an extreme degree that Batcher can potentially be getting in multiple attacks while our opponent cannot move. So it makes me start thinking, what kind of counters are going to be necessary? It may mean that something strong like Malik and Melgus are going to be really important, because Malik, with those fear mechanics, that is going to be able to slow down Batcher, or those cooldown manipulation mechanics from Melgus is going to prevent Batcher from using her specials and causing these kinds of speed reduction mechanics. With our Omicron, this is a territory war Ami. Inflict an additional stack of bleed, maxing out at 6 until the encounter end. And if another Bad Batch ally is inflicted with captive, the cooldown of this ability is refreshed. So we can see the potential here. It's going to be that much easier to get high stacks of bleed. It's only going to take 2 uses of this ability to max out at 6. But the cooldown reduction or refresh, that means we could be using this ability very often, at least later in a match, which is just going to remove all that speed and make it that much harder for our opponents to win. But there's some issues. If they're going to be that much slower, they're probably not going to be that successful in triggering captive. So I can see situations where I'm not convinced that this is very strong Ami. But maybe I'll feel differently about it in action, but my instincts say that this is skippable, at least that we need to see it proven out. I would not rush for this one, let other people do that. And it also depends on the overall strength of the squad. Right now, we don't know. This may just be the type of thing where it just doesn't really come into play because the squad itself is so strong overall. Really, it's one of those things where the weaker the squad, the better, because you can actually trigger captive more easily in those kinds of scenarios. Just not too weak. So wait for this one. Squad synergies. Ugnaugh's going to be our stand-in for Batcher. She's not in game yet. There's actually not a ton of synergy between Fugitive and Batcher at this point, but we're starting to see some of the components. With Fugitive, her second special, Our Way Out. This is the one where everybody's stealth, and when you use this ability, you give them a bunch of bonuses. They gain some turn meter, but they also gain speed up. So what we're seeing here is some of those mechanics that Batcher has. These are going to everybody on the squad so that they can join in with that speed up and take advantage of those opportunities that Batcher is creating with the pinned and bleed mechanics. And then the next ability that we really need to pay attention to is the unique Odd Little Clone. This is the one that is just explaining the mechanics of captive and target practice. So captive, the way to remember this, instead of somebody being defeated, they instead gain captive. With captive, you have 10 stacks of captive, you lose a stack stack every time a Bad Batch ally takes a turn, and you need to rescue them before they lose those 10 stacks of captive. In order to do that, you need to get 30 stacks of target practice, and you gain those stacks of target practice by targeting the enemy that you attacked last, somebody who was hit in the last turn. So if it was an AoE ability, you can move that around a little bit. But what you're going to get here with Batcher is, since she can ignore taunt and stealth, she can ignore whoever you want, but also with that piercing howl special, she's applying to marked in certain locations. And that's doing two things. One, it allows everybody else to target somebody who was attacked last, so you don't have to just go after a taunting tank. But what it also does, it allows you to choose somebody who's actually going to be beneficial to your attacks. Somebody where if you eliminate them, the team may fall apart. So you can imagine a situation like with a Cadme or a Great Mother. You can be putting that marked onto Cadme herself or Great Mother and just shutting down the mechanics of the entire squad, while also ensuring that you are maintaining the conditions that are going to rescue one of your allies by getting those 30 stacks of target practice. And considering Great Mother is dooming somebody, that could be really useful, because you can't revive somebody from doomed, but if they're not being taken out to begin with, you can rescue them. Now for the rest, we don't know what we're going to get, but we can speculate on things that are going to be beneficial. And one of the things I think is going to be most useful to this squad is additional off balance. So if Mercenary, Hunter, or Wrecker is able, or Crosshair, is able to land stacks of off balance, that is going to have just more synergy with Batcher, where Batcher's actually going to be able to apply ability block when she uses Piercing Howl. Because right now, I think in most situations, there's probably only going to be one character with any stacks of off balance. If an ally, though, is able to help, then that ability block starts doing something. So far, this squad I don't think is the most interesting. I don't think anyone's really too excited by it, but at least we're getting Crosshair, or at least a Crosshair, and we're working towards something. Right now, though, it's Conquest. We've got Conquest videos up in the corner. We also have a roster video down below. We just did my 200th relic. We tried to do something a little bit special with it, instead of doing just some default one like something towards Ahsoka. So check either of those videos out. We got a lot of Conquest stuff. Thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.